They say when someone vanishes without a trace, it's often the people left behind who unravel the most. But what if the person you're searching for is chasing a ghost of their own? Tonight's true story is about a father who disappeared, a remote Canadian town, and a haunting memory buried deep in the woods. So pull the blankets a little tighter, turn the light down low, and listen closely, because this one might follow you into your dreams. It was late August 1996. I was 19 and just starting to figure myself out. The night before, I'd been at a house party with my girlfriend. One of my first real experiences with alcohol. So when I finally stumbled home, nursing a pretty rough hangover, I wasn't expecting anything more than silence and maybe a sandwich. Instead, I walked into something else entirely. The house was dead quiet, almost too quiet. I thought no one was home until I saw my mom sitting at the kitchen table, just sitting there, not reading, not eating, just staring into the middle distance with a half-full glass of wine in front of her. And that alone should have set off alarm bells. My mom never drank during the day. When she saw me, she didn't even smile, okay? She just said, "Sit down," and then, in a quiet voice that chilled my spine, she told me something that changed my life. "Your father's gone, and he's not coming back." I asked if gone meant dead. She shook her head. "No, he just left. No note, no warning." At first, I felt this weird relief. At least, he wasn't dead. Right. But that quickly gave way to confusion, then dread. Over the next few weeks, our house was filled with awkward check-ins from family members. But nobody, not even my mom, wanted to talk about why he left. Every time I brought it up, she'd either shut down or explode. She called him a piece of garbage, said he was dead to her. But that just made me more curious. Because if you're that angry, you're not just heartbroken, you're hiding something. So I went looking. I started with the only person I knew who might have answers. Carl, my dad's only real friend. Carl said he hadn't heard from my dad in ages, but he did mention a place. A little dot on the map up in the Canadian wilderness called Wrigley. My dad had spent a summer up there during college and always said he wanted to go back someday. No job, no friends, no responsibilities tying him down. Wrigley started to make sense. So I drove from Portland to Wrigley. 30 hours straight through some of the most remote stretches of land I've ever seen. Arrive. In July of 1998, nearly 2 years after he vanished. No hotels, one gas station, one medical clinic, and about 100 people, most of them First Nations. That gas station was where I met Winston. He was this down-to-earth guy, mid-40s, very grounded. When I showed him a picture of my dad, he shook his head, didn't recognize the face. But then I pulled out an old photo, one I found stuffed in a drawer before I left. My dad was younger, smiling, posing next to a girl in hiking gear at the base of a giant, jagged rock. Winston froze. He pointed at the photo. "That's Hunter's Rock," he said. "It's about 10 miles out of town. That girl, she looks familiar." Winston stared at her face like it was haunting him. A few minutes later, he came back and told me something that made my blood run cold. He said the girl in the photo looked almost exactly like Susan Culver, a young woman who had gone missing near Great Bear Lake back in the early 70s. He sent me to the town's clinic to talk to someone who might know more. Chief Irwin of the Posey First Nation. Chief Irwin looked at the photo and turned pale. The friendly smile faded from his face. "She was reported missing in 1973, he said. "And your dad was one of the suspects." The words didn't make sense at first. My dad. Apparently, the RCMP had brought him in for questioning, not once, but twice. They never charged him. They never found Susan's body. But she had vanished while camping near the Sawu lands, near the jaws of Great Bear Lake. And my dad had been there with her. The campsite was found undisturbed. Her gear left behind, untouched. And now, decades later, it seemed like my dad had gone back. Maybe trying to find closure, or maybe something else. Chief Irwin said it was unlikely he passed through town on the way to Hunter's Rock. Not if he wanted to avoid people who might remember him, and not if he was retracing his steps. Going back to the place he last saw Susan alive. That place was a 30-mile hike into mosquito-ridden marshlands past a town called Deline, far beyond any tourist trail. But Deline had something important, an RCMP outpost. And they would have records, reports, maybe even files about my dad. I didn't have the money, I didn't have the gear, but I couldn't turn back. So I made some calls. One to work, one to my mom. I told her everything. She was furious at first, but eventually she wired me just enough money to get there. And Winston, good old Winston, offered to drive me to Delhi in exchange for gas money. But before we left, he asked me something I'll never forget. If your dad's out there looking for her, and you're out here looking for him, who's gonna come looking for you? He said it with a half smile, but something about it made me feel cold. He wasn't joking, not really. On the 5-hour drive to Deline, he talked me out of hiking into the wilderness alone. I didn't have the food, the gear, the strength, but I could still go to the RCMP. I could find out who my dad was back then. I could dig through whatever they had and maybe, just maybe, learn the truth about what happened to Suzanne Culver and what my father had been running from all this time. I knew I was closer than I'd ever been before. Sleep well if you can, and remember, some answers live in the dark for a reason. Some mysteries stay buried in the wilderness. Others keep walking beside us, just out of sight. If this story left you thinking twice about unanswered questions, or who's really out there in the dark, make sure to leave a like, drop a comment about the creepiest part, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss what's waiting in the next episode. You've been listening to true, creepy stories to help you sleep with one eye open. Good night. If you can sleep.